All right, there. Not sure what's going on with that intro. I've got plenty of internet speed, so I don't know. Let me make sure I am on the. Yeah, I'm on. I got plenty of internet speed, so I don't know why I'm buffering, but whatever. So today I'm bringing back my good friend Marc Coppell. Marc's coming all the way from New Zealand, and we've talked a few times in the past. I don't know if we've ever talked on video. We may have, but I'm going to bring Marc in here because I want Marc to be on this podcast again, and I want Marc to be on screen when I intro him. So here we are. We've got Marc here on the screen all the way from New Zealand. Marc, you can hear me, right?
Yep, all good.
All right, beautiful. So Marc comes to us all the way from New Zealand. I met him in Las Vegas. Oh, God, it's been 15, 16, 17 years ago. It's been a while. And Marc's from New Zealand, and Marc decided to go back to New Zealand. And Marc decided that he was going to go up in the mountains and look for the Moehau Man, which is kind of New Zealand's version of Bigfoot. But what happened was more wild than anything he could have ever expected to come across, and the adventures that he's been having up there and what he's been experiencing up there is just, I mean, you can't say it any more than out of this world. So Marc, just break it down a little bit. I want to have just a conversation in general, but I do want to talk about what you've been experiencing. So how did it all start, and it turned in? What did it turn into?
Well, when I knew you, Chaz, way back then when I lived in Las Vegas and Henderson, I was, I did paranormal investigating like some people do. They go on the weekend or whatever. And so I've got a background in paranormal investigating, like similar to yourself. Had many experiences throughout my personal life, sometimes with others. I was planning on coming back to New Zealand. I spent about 20 years in Las Vegas, and something very strange happened that changed everything for me. This was around the 4th of January of 2013. I was actually going out to the desert. I took the day off work. It was a Friday. I was out there to go gold prospecting. I was out in southern Nevada. I was just outside Boulder City, over towards Nelson, Nevada. I was going on that little desert highway out there, out in the middle of nowhere. I get this strange impression, sudden, very strong impression, pull over immediately. Like I nearly crashed my car, pull over. And I thought, oh, well, that's weird. Why did that happen? So anyway, I thought, oh, well, maybe it's just strong inspiration. I've done metaphysical stuff. So I've done, all the meditation, and I've sort of done stuff in the past. And I thought, oh, well, maybe it's just to guide me to some area, hotspot. But anyway, so I had all my metal detector gear on, my backpack. I was out in the, straight wild desert. So I'm going up and down these rocky ravines, these hills. They've got quartz crystal in the ground. And I hear a couple of gunshots in the distance, which is nothing too strange because people go shooting in the desert, target shooting. Well, where I went is quite an isolated area. There's no public tracks out there. It's wild as you get as far as the desert's concerned. As I was making my way up and down, I heard these gunshots. First of all, I heard these gunshots. And then right in front of me, to my absolute bloody surprise, I see this object flew through a gap in the mountain. It was an oblong silver, um, some kind of vehicle of some kind, unknown exotic technology, flies through the gap in the mountain, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I knew I couldn't get my camera fast enough, so I just stared at it, because if I take my eyes off of it for 1 second, I'm going to lose it. So this thing went along, and it seemed to veer down as though it was landing. It was like a Travis Walton kind of thing. Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky, allegedly was taken for 5 days. But anyway, so I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I started hyperventilating. I was like freaked out. This was in the middle of the day, very close to the ground. I thought, I've got to know what this is, because I'm a drone pilot too. This was not a drone. Something was very unusual about this craft of some sort. It had no wings on it, completely silent, highly reflective, looked like a bit like mercury or polished aluminum, like the Chicago bean. If I could give a material comparison visually, anyway. So anyway, I tried to find the landing zone where this thing was, and I had to go up and down these hills out there, rugged area. You had to be very careful not to fall. But anyway, so I couldn't find it, and I just got my Canon point and shoot, and I thought, oh well, I'll just film the area afterwards anyway. So I went back and forth with my Canon point and shoot camera. It was only like 1080p back then. So anyway, and I thought, I looked everywhere. I couldn't find the scene. Wasn't too happy. I was like, I want to know what that was. There's nothing normal about it. So anyway, I make my way back, and my car's parked on the side of the highway there. And I noticed this tan-colored SUV, looked like a Cherokee SUV, pulls out of this defunct road out there, stops. Two tall people dressed in tan fatigues, wearing sun hats, covering their necks. They get out of the car. They walk up towards my car, and I'm watching in amazement, like who the hell are you people, And so they walk up towards my car, quite tall. They didn't look American. There was no insignia. They walk up to my car. One of them starts looking in my tinted car windows, and I was like, what the hell? Who the hell are these people? I don't know what to think, to be perfectly honest. However, I highly suspect that those people I saw were related to what that craft I saw. Either they were the pilots, or they were rendezvousing with whatever was controlling it for whatever purposes or reason. However, I believe this to be Tic Tac UFO craft that we've heard about in the news, in recent years, about Tic Tac UFOs that come down from like 90,000 feet. In a second, they'll be right above the water. They move too fast for anything that we have known technology. So I suspect that what I saw was a Tic Tac shaped UFO. Now, it totally turned my world upside down that day. I had an interest in ghosts and stuff like that, but I never had a proactive interest in UFOs. Like, I never went out sky watching or anything like that. Well, my whole life was turned upside down. I needed bloody answers. I had to go into the casino after I had that experience, because I was so freaked out that I needed to go somewhere to try and calm my mind down. I was so freaked out by what I'd seen. Anyway, so that led me that day. I've gone over that video footage a number of times. I believe that my camera caught this landed craft in the background. This thing flew vertically. It looked like a tic tac oblong shape. Well, this thing appeared to be like almost like a Winnebago RV. It landed horizontally in the distance. Now, as I examine my video and I zoom in on it, I am certain that my camera picked this thing up, even though I didn't see it. I was quite, maybe because I was too freaked out. I don't know. But anyway, so this sighting, this experience, this encounter, whatever one you want to label it, I went to Skinwalker Ranch later that year looking for answers. Skinwalker Ranch, the Area 51 of the paranormal, just about any kind of thing you can think of that is related to the paranormal, cattle mutilations, shadow people, poltergeist phenomena, cryptids such as Bigfoot, portals opening up, various UFOs. That is a hotbed place where even the US government studied through Bigelow Aerospace with top-notch level scientists. They basically Robert Bigelow was a wealthy entrepreneur who spent a lot of money using his own scientists to study the phenomena to try to understand what was going on there. So anyway, I went there to try and record UFOs. I went there with my girlfriend at the time. I went there up on UFO Hills. It's known by the locals. You can't get on the property. It's guarded 24/7 by former military personnel. I went there for UFOs. I took my paranormal gear with me. I had like a night vision, various night vision devices, ghost tracker devices that would track any anomalies. I went there for UFOs. Instead, we're sitting up in the darkness on this whole complete pitch black darkness. I'm there, got my cameras pointed to the stars, over the skies, just over Skinwalker Ranch, as it's known. There was an explosion sound. Now, I thought one of my battery packs had exploded, but when I went over the footage from that night, it was actually a rock. I don't know how big the rock was. It was pitch black. It sounded like an explosion, but it was definitely a rock. So I go there for UFOs. Something else happens. Now, we had no idea what that. And then when we did a ghost box session in the car, something knocked on our window in this area. And I know girlfriend was really pretty freaked out.
Right. So I'm curious. You brought up first with the UFO. You brought that up, and that is obviously out around. I think you had told me before Nelson, Nevada. Was
Correct.
out around Nelson, Nevada,
Yes.
which I mean that's wide open land out there.
It is.
That's not that's just wide open desert out there. Anybody can look it up. There's some really cool mines that I know you've had some experiences out there. But with the Skinwalker Ranch, I know, obviously Bigelow owned it for a long time and had NIDS out there with Colin Kelleher and everybody out there. And they've had some pretty wild experiences out there. And some of that has started to come public, and Bigelow still holds on tightly to his research. They don't talk a lot about it, but a few things have filtered out over the years. But with Skinwalker Ranch, obviously you've watched the TV show. And
I've seen a little bit of it. I just little slivers of it.
Right. So they have, they do a lot of, of course, a lot of it's for TV.
Yep.
And some of they do a lot of science experiments on there, and a lot of it's kind of beyond me. I don't watch the show too often. So do you think, just as you haven't watched it a lot, but what you have watched, do you think that they're being sincere and legitimate with what they're trying to do, or do you think it's just strictly for ratings?
Well, I can't say because I'm not directly involved with them. Other than what they reported that's happened, a lot of it reflects what happened in George Knapp Keller's book, Hunt for the Skinwalker. Science Approaches the Unexplained. Brandon Frugel, the new owner, well, I say new, I think he's owned it since about 2016, but he reported seeing a disc there. He had never seen anything like that before in his life, according to the interview that I saw. They report strange radiation fluctuations, sometimes them getting hurt. So I can't say for sure, but whenever people do TV shows, you know, there's going to be some sort of theatrics they want. I mean, obviously they're going to be, you know, they've got ratings. They've got to get an audience. They've got to get people following them and interested and tease them and all that. But I don't know about you, but from being involved with the paranormal, weird stuff happens when you go and do that. Weird, unexplained stuff happens. It might affect your equipment. It might affect the people. You might see something. You might feel something. You might hear something. Weird stuff happens. Like when I went with you that time to Sandy Valley Cemetery, we was at Creepy Howie's grave. Do you remember the Creepy Howie's grave?
Yeah.
And you did a ghost box session, or somebody had and you said the word Emmett. And then straight after the same word Emmett came out through the device. So what are the odds of that happening? Now, I understand that my old Vegas Valley paranormal director, Barry, big fella, he got pulled down into the grave one time from a report. Well, I wasn't there. Right. I was there another time, and I had a sudden cramp in my leg. I fell right down on the same spot. Fell right onto his grave.
Oh, wow. You know, it's weird with that cemetery, and Sandy Valley is, I'd say, to get to the cemetery, it's probably about 45 miles from my house, right? You got to go out and turn on the Good Springs. If people ever play the video game Fallout, Good Springs is featured in one of the Fallout video games. Anyways, this cemetery in Sandy Valley, I've been out there probably 10 times. I really like it out there. Over the past, I'd say last time I went was during COVID. And I didn't really capture anything. I figured, all right, it's going to be nice and quiet out here. The world's in a weird state. You know, it's just real weird energy right now. And we didn't catch anything. I got a couple of tiny blips on the K2 meter, but beyond that, we didn't really capture anything. The first couple of times we went out there, which was kind of around the time that you and I were going, and it was very active and a lot of people were going out there. And it was kind of one of those well-known spots among people in Vegas that were paranormal investigators, that there was activity. And we got activity the first couple of times we went out there. Like I saw a black shadow move across the cemetery and actually blocked out some of the solar lights as it moved across the cemetery. Wow. So we I don't know if I ever got any EVPs. It's very possible. I'd have to go back through my audio from then. But the last couple of times we haven't captured anything out there. And it's funny you brought up Barry and that story. I had heard that story and had gone back out there, and I don't know exactly what happened with Barry that night. I didn't really see like a hole in the grave, but that doesn't mean that something weird didn't happen to Barry, or that maybe he sunk down in there a little bit and somebody came and filled it in. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not saying that the story's untrue. I'm like, all right, Barry had this experience. I'm going to go check it out because I want to see what's going on. And it had been a couple of months, and it'd been, you know, we've been through monsoon season here and lots of rain and everything. So the hole could have very easily filled itself in. And with the rain on the ground, you know, we would have never known that there was anything had happened there. So it's very possible that that story did happen. And, you know, it's just one of those places. It's just a nice, small, tiny little cemetery, and it's a cool place. And, you know, like I said, last couple of times I haven't really caught anything there, you know. So even now we're looking for new places to go, and we're just trying to, you know, find new places. And there's a bunch of stuff that we're discovering around here that we don't think many people have gone to or have talked about going to. So there are some cool places we're planning on going out, but again, now it's getting hot outside, and nobody wants to go anywhere out in the middle of nowhere because it's hot outside.
Yeah, and you got rattlesnakes too.
Yeah, rattlesnakes. I don't worry so much about spiders, obviously, other than the, you know, like black widows or something like that. You know, tarantulas aren't really going to mess with you, but it's those rattlesnakes that are everywhere right now because it's so hot outside. We hunt for food at night, you know.
Yeah. So,
But so let's talk. You went back home, and you went back home to New Zealand, and I mean, obviously, with your background in the paranormal, when you went back to New Zealand, you obviously didn't want to just give that up. You wanted to kind of keep that alive and keep investigating and keep looking into. So, what made you decide to start looking into the Moehau Man, which is New Zealand's version of Bigfoot?
Well, that's a good question. When I came back to New Zealand, look, I had initially no interest in Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the Yowies. There's hundreds of thousands of different names for these so-called manimals around the world, across culture, across language, across time. So something really strange happened, and I wondered if it was a result of me visiting Skinwalker Ranch, because I suspect that a Sasquatch in the Uinta Basin, I suspect it was a Sasquatch that threw a rock next to us. Now, I suspect that George Knapp and Com Kelleher have talked about the piggyback or the stalker phenomena that's quite well known amongst researchers, that you can be followed, like, for example, a haunted location. There's always the risk of being followed from a haunted location. That has certainly happened at the infamous Skinwalker Ranch. Some of the intelligence officers got followed. People got followed to their homes. It even affected their neighbors, affected their spouses. Even George Knapp, I think he mentioned his wife got affected. And also Robert Bigelow's wife. I understand that she had something happen too. So anyways, I believe that I was basically tagged. Now, whether it was because of that UFO that I saw earlier that year, 2013, or later on over by Skinwalker Ranch, I believe I was followed around the world by phenomena associated with UFOs and Bigfoot. Now, does it correlate to the paranormal? Does it correlate with what people report, apparitions, shadow people? Does this all intertwine? Well, I don't know for sure, but there's some cross, what I'd call bleed through of phenomena that I noticed. Now, when I got back to New Zealand, I was doing a paranormal investigation in the Guardian building apartments on Queen Street, of all places, in the CBD, the Central Business District of Auckland City. I was doing a paranormal investigation, and then through I had a Sangean hacked radio that had Faraday pouch around it. There's a strange voice that came through that said something about accepting the Bigfoot people, big people. It repeated. It was definitely not broadcast. It was not something that would be permitted on radio. It would call my name. Also, when I was doing the investigation, something grabbed me and pulled me up on my chair while I was sitting down. Weird stuff started happening. I moved to South Auckland, and I wanted to continue some of my gold history prospecting work. So I went to this area that was very remote, very hard to get to. Weird things started happening there. I heard what I would call samurai chatter. I was out by this creek. There's no pathways out there. This is machete only, very dangerous area. You can easily slip. If you're not careful, you can slip and fall to your death. Very dangerous area, wild area. I heard this strange, what I'd call samurai chatter, like almost like two beings talking to each other about me. And I thought, oh gosh, I mean, what are they? There wasn't people, because it was such a wild, dangerous area. It's very hard to sneak around without slipping. Anyway, so I said, look, I'm not here to harm you. I come in, I respect. I don't mean to harm you guys in any way. Other weird stuff started happening, and I had something. I was taking a leak when I was walking out from this area one time, and I hear the sound of stomp, 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 and I'm taking a leak, and there should be nobody out here. So these footsteps, they come right up to me, and I'm like, I didn't know what the hell to expect. I was on the edge of this ravine, very steep, dangerous ravine. I couldn't see what it was. Something invisible. So I thought, what, am I dealing with ghosts? Or it seemed ghost-like. So anyway, I had this strong feeling that I needed to go down into this dangerous ravine area below. Very thick native New Zealand rainforest. Weird stuff started happening down there. I realized that I started to need to start wearing cameras. I started wearing mics on me. I started wearing GoPro cameras. And in those days, GoPro cameras had crappy mics on them. So, but anyway, so I'd hear strange voices. I'd find these strange footprints, sometimes strange structures, the sound of what sounds like wood knock sounds on trees, weird stuff happening. I was like, I've got to figure this out. And so I slowly, at that point in time, I didn't think Bigfoot or anything like that.
Right.
I just thought, well, maybe it's some of this. Is it a hermit? And then things started happening. Like I'd find this in this small grouping of kauri trees by this creek, the area where I found about 30 to 40 cinder blocks had been stacked up like a children's playhouse with a little wine bottle put in the middle. Now, there are no tracks out there. Now, cinder blocks are very heavy. They are very hard. So I'm like, how the hell got this out here? And when I came back, they were all gone bar one. Something had moved all of these cinder blocks, and they're really heavy. Like in this area, it's bloody hard to get in and out of. The only effective way to do it would use a helicopter. But then why leave one? And then there's an old stack of really old ones. So weird stuff, these little footprints, sometimes big footprints. And I started to look into the legends of what Maori talk about, the Moehos, the Rapawais, the Maureros, which are basically New Zealand's version of Bigfoot or the Yowies, the Sasquatch, these so-called giants that were extremely strong, highly intelligent. The old Maori warriors, they talked about them before the white people came here. They were deathly afraid of them, and they had tapu areas where they told people, especially the white settlers, prospectors, don't go here, especially at nighttime. Don't go alone. They had areas also. They talked about the fairy people, that, according to their legends, the fairy people had a different physical appearance to Maori, and they allegedly would only show up when the mists and came out on the mountains and low light. And according to some of their folklore, that these beings would abduct their people. And some of the descriptions are that would be taken suddenly and through the air to the tops of the citadels of the mountains, wild mountains. So a lot of this, what I was looking into, is like, wow, there's some sort of connection with the Maori, with the fairy tales of the Maori. But a lot of their tales had reflections to like the Australian Aborigine, to the Native Americans, of like these giants and that. And so I slowly put the pieces together. I was like, I can't believe it. I had no idea that we even had a Bigfoot in New Zealand. I mean, we're remote. We're the most remote country on earth, all the way in the South Pacific. One of the questions I get from people who are skeptical say, well, how do they get to New Zealand? I mean, that's all the way in the South Pacific. How do they get there? And which is a very valid question, and
Right.
one which I ask. But so I've seen craft by one of these mountains where the tails are of the giants. I've got a number of reports from people who've had encounters, including modern day reports that you won't hear in the modern media. Reports from people, scientists, hunters, tourists. I've got young kids, a group of 3 girls that saw this thing at the back of this property that had reddish eyes. It looked like what we might call a Sasquatch type being that growled at them. It's just, I couldn't believe what was going on. I was like, this stuff is like something out of a movie. And so what was going on out there was actually interacting with me. And what I found as I started recording when I went out there, they would mimic me. I would say the word tree. I was talking about these trees that got set. They would yell out tree, whatever these, and they've got really deep voices. One time I went in there and I would do a series of whoops to get them to interact with me, or one of them pulls back a tree and I do it, and then it actually copies me. Some deep voice groans out there. That does not fit anything of any of the wildlife that we have out here. And so I've been investigating this. Now I'm starting to record some of these very strange voices. In my religion, they talked about the fairy people, that they would come out in low light conditions. They would conceal themselves from outsiders in wild areas. They would sometimes speak, and then people can't see them. And I was recording these very strange voices, and I'm still doing it today. And it snowballed over the years. It has snowballed. They call me by name. Chaz, it's absolutely unbelievable what's going on. I also record very strange howling. I've had projectiles thrown at me, caught on camera. Now, this documentary that I put out in late 2023, the X-rated files followed from Skinwalker. Well, it took me 10 years to make this documentary, and it records some of those communications. These beings call me by name. They show up in areas that have no public tracks. This other, what I call research area number 2, where I've got UFOs flying over the forest canopy occasionally. This is where I'll hear the strange voices. I use parabolic mics, which allow me, they're highly directional mics. They allow me, I can record 1,600 feet away up on the mountain. And what I do is they'll interact with me at nighttime when I go up there. I'm surrounded by cliffs that are hundreds of feet high, very dangerous. Much of the mountain is quarantined. You can't just wander through there. But I've talked to park rangers. I've talked to people that work for the DOC or the Department of Conservation. People who've sighted these so-called giants on the job. I'm recording the strange interactions that happen. Like, I'll ask them, they'll bang on a tree for me. They'll go bang, 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 bang on a tree, or they'll bang boulders together. I mean, it's just like, it's unbelievable, Chaz. It's all I can say. But if you go onto my channel, we can hear some of these voices. It's totally, they started getting invitations. These guys started inviting me through the ghost box. I also had one of them come into my house, what I call an astral being, came in, invited me out to go on a certain day, Friday the 30th of 2017. It was a full moon, I remember. Something ran past me that smashed through the bush like an elephant. It's just shocking stuff.
Yeah, that would have wow, that would have really been unsettling to be out there under full moon, nice and dark outside, and then somebody just runs past you. Something runs past you, making all that noise, and you can't see it. Did you feel the wind shift when it ran past you?
No, I was in thick bush. I mean, you can only see maybe a few feet in front of you. Right. It's a machete area.
Right. But, okay. So let's do this. I'm going to play the trailer for your documentary now. So everybody that's watching or is going to watch this later will have an idea of exactly the type of terrain that you're talking about and how remote it is. And then like how, some of the things that you're hearing are in the documentary and some of the things that you're recording. So we're going to watch that the trailer here real quick.
This is my story. It's real and shocking. I'm Marc Coppell. I've been a paranormal investigator. I was followed by anomalous phenomena related to Bigfoot and UFOs around the world, from the outskirts of Skinwalker Ranch in northeastern Utah to New Zealand. I wondered what was happening when I got followed in the wild, had stones thrown at me, found large footprints, heard strange voices calling my name in areas where there are no public tracks.
those footprints on the other side?
Could be. Oh my goodness.
There it is, folks. Another print.
It went from small red ball to like the flat bar of red, and as it went around the corner it turned into like a bluer haze, and then all the boys were just like, oh yeah. I was like, no, I'm watching this. Something's happening but no one acknowledges it. Yeah, so a lot of things were happening. I was kind of like, okay, this is not normal for this to be happening this much.
And it screamed at us for a good 5, maybe 10 seconds. Like really loud.
All right. So let me switch back here. All right, Mark. So I'm watching that trailer, and I've watched it a bunch of times. And a couple of things stood out at me this time when I watched it. One of the things that stood out at me was obviously how remote this area is that you're going out and actively looking and investigating. And because when you talk about it and you describe it, there's no way you're going to be able to describe it that's going to show exactly how desolate it is until somebody actually sees it. So now when you talk about it, if somebody's seen that trailer and now they know what's going on and you talk about it and you're down there, it's rugged area, like you said, dangerous area, machete area. But you mentioned the word quarantine. So here in the States, quarantine means something a little bit different. Like a quarantine would be like when COVID was going on and we all had to stay in our house for 2 weeks, right? We were all quarantined to our house. If you got COVID, you had to stay home and lock yourself in your bedroom for 2 weeks, right? Until you had no symptoms. I'm going to guess that quarantine in New Zealand just means that it's off limits. It doesn't mean that there's like something there that's going to make you sick or hurt you health-wise, other than, you know, if you potentially fell and broke a leg or something like that, correct?
Yeah, well, basically, they have Maori, or it's called a rahui in Maori, but basically it's because of kauri tree dieback disease. According to officials, they don't want people wandering through, dragging this microscopic organism that's killing off native kauri trees, these beautiful, lofty trees that you find in the native New Zealand wilderness. So basically, this other, what I'd call research area number 2, where I get the howls, the stones being thrown at me, caught on camera. They don't want general public walking through there. So there's actually what they call a rahui, or a type of quarantine where they don't want people, the public. And even when they do have areas where you can, on tracks, public tracks, you have to actually go through these cleaning stations where you're cleaning your footwear before your boots, whatever, your shoes. When you go through, you have to spray them with this chemical to kill any potential organisms. They don't want it spreading. That's according to them. So,
do you think that that's? I mean, it's probably a real thing to an extent. Do you think it is as bad as what they're talking like it is, or do you think it's they know that maybe something's there and they just don't want people out there potentially stumbling across something that could really hurt them, some kind of, like you said, a manimal?
Well, I don't know for sure, really. But I have talked to, like in the documentary, that the man that you see at the end in the brown, his name is Dom Eastwood. He was a local park ranger that I was very fortunate. He actually contacted me. He reported having stones thrown at him, similar to me, out in the middle of nowhere, in an area that's remote, away from other people. Also, very strange howling sounds. Now, I opened that documentary. There's a singing at the beginning of it. Now, I am certain that singing is from New Zealand's Bigfoot. They very deep, elongated voices. that are very powerful. I also had projectiles thrown at me when they were the strange howling, singing sound. Nobody's been able to, he couldn't ID it. He couldn't ID it. Nobody's been able to ID these very strange. Now, I've gone there several times. One time back in April of 2022 is when I went there, and this howling was going on for hours. I was like, what the is that? You know, and I could hear not only that, but there was, some skeptics, they get hold of me and say, oh, there's nothing to whatever you recorded. Well, it's a bit hard to explain what's throwing stones and projectiles at me. Now, I've tried to replicate the stone throws. I've actually gone down there about the position where the projectiles are thrown. Whatever it's throwing, and I can only throw it halfway. These things, whatever they're doing, they're throwing them uphill at nighttime. They're landing right next to me. I've also got reports from other people, tourists, hunters. One man from Spain, a fireman from Spain, who went up Mount Moehau, as it's called, the legendary mountain of the giants and fairy people, according to Maori legend. He went up to the summit. We're not supposed to go to the top. It's privately owned. It's a wild mountain. This is also the mountain where I got these UFOs when I was down in the foothill area. He reported having, I believe he said it was 14-kilogram projectiles thrown at him. He was by himself. He was going to camp in this wild area at the summit, the top of this mountain, 3,000 foot or so mountain. Had a series of projectiles that were thrown at him. Too heavy, too big, too heavy. I'm not sure how much 14 kilograms. I think that might be about 40 pounds thrown at about 60 feet. So whatever's throwing that should be in the Olympics.
Right. Wow. So what blows my mind is, like you said, the first thing people ask is, well, how the hell did they get there? Right? You guys are out in the middle of the South Pacific. Like, if it's a Bigfoot, how did the Bigfoot get there? Okay, well, how did the Yeti get to the Himalayas? And when we talk about Bigfoot here in the United States, there's multiple versions that we talk about. I mean, we have the skunk ape down in the South. We've got your typical, Pacific Northwest Bigfoot. We've got your Colorado Bigfoot. We've got your, Utah, Idaho Bigfoot. I mean, they're everywhere. Here in Nevada, they're probably only in northern Nevada because everything else is pretty much desolate desert. I mean, it's not, when you would think about what it would take to survive and to support the food and the water and the survival of a Bigfoot, a desert's not it. Because, I mean, honestly, without water, we wouldn't survive. And we have to get our water piped in here. Yeah. We have no water here other than Lake Mead. Now that water goes to California and Arizona. We don't get any of that, even though it's 30 miles away, if that. We don't get barely any of that. All of our water is piped in. So without water, we wouldn't survive. So I don't think that there's a chance that there's like a brown desert colored Bigfoot somewhere hiding out near Winnemucca, Nevada. I don't think there is. There's obviously some, if there's going to be, you're going to get in, as you get into northern Nevada up by Tahoe, it becomes, it's forested area. There's wildlife such as deer and bears and a lot of stuff that would provide a food source for a Bigfoot, that goes on up into Oregon and then on up into Washington and then on up into Alaska, and then on across the Bering Strait up there to Russia. It's easy to think that they would survive there, but not in the desert, and then there's certain like local legends and stuff about certain types of creatures out in the areas surrounding Las Vegas and the desert area. You've got the dogs of El Dorado Canyon, and you can go out there and hear them howl off in the distance. Those could be coyotes, but it's just a local legend, and that's out there by Nelson where you saw that craft. So I mean, there's a bunch of stuff here, but I would think that if anything could survive in one spot, chances of it being in another spot that's pretty high. So you may just have a different version of it. So do you think, there's a lot of reports where people will be hiking and they'll come around a bend in the trail and they'll see bipedal, hairy, big creature. They automatically think it's a Bigfoot, and it turns and looks at them, and then there's a flash of light and it's gone.
Yep.
Right? Or they'll see a shadow run by, but there's nothing there. And I've talked to people where they've been, and these people live up in Washington, and they have a spot on their land where they go, and they always have interactions. And they were walking down a trail one night, and they heard something running up to them, like you said, with the big footsteps. And they heard it run past them, heavy breathing, grunting, everything. They felt the wind go past them, but they never saw something run past them. They just felt it go past them. So that leads me to this. They could be physical to an extent, and there could be some that are physical all the time. But I lean to believe that they're either they have some sort of cloaking ability to where they can hide themselves. I mean, we've seen, there's a famous video of Les Stroud, Survival Man, when he did his Bigfoot series. And he's sitting there, and right behind him, it looks like there's one sitting there, maybe not even 10 feet from him, just in the brush, and he has no idea it's there. And he didn't even notice it until later on when somebody pointed it out in the footage that he aired on TV. So obviously they can blend in well and hide. Do you think that they're just, excellent at hiding? Or do you think they're excellent at hiding and they're some sort of interdimensional creature?
Well, I think it could be all of the above, because we get reports of them being seen. There was a man that was working for the Department of Conservation up in northern New Zealand. He was maintaining a track with a work buddy, and he said he saw one that was skinny. It didn't look like the typical Paddy, a lot more skinny, lanky. But he said when they were running through, they moved very fast and they made absolutely no sound whatsoever. So a normal physical person, being animal, you should have heard the scurry through the foliage, through the sticks, the leaves breaking. Should have heard that. But some of the accounts, people don't hear that. It's almost like they're floating over it, or they're ghost-like, And you bring up the point, how do they get there? Well, researcher Stan Gordon wrote a book on Pennsylvania encounters of Sasquatch and UFOs from 1973. He investigated sightings in Pennsylvania, even with the state police even went and investigated. Now, in reading his reports, he also mentions that in some of those reports, some of the people would see, in the small number of them, these beings coming on and off UFOs.
Right.
So the theory of panspermia, that these things or things could be getting around through artificial means. Now, for example, the wallaby that's here in New Zealand is basically a miniature kangaroo. They're not native to New Zealand. They were brought here by the sailors who went to Australia and came to New Zealand. I suspect quite strongly that either they were using this stuff, or they're being dropped there, or they might be using some sort of portal. Now, over at Skinwalker Ranch, there's been these portals seen opening up. Sometimes crafts, sometimes even scientists saw, like one time they saw this bipedal being coming out of this orange portal. Someone was watching in a night vision device up on the the Mesa there at Skinwalker Ranch. And I thought, well, how on earth are Bigfoots getting around in the Uinta Basin, especially by Skinwalker Ranch? I don't know if you've been out there, Chaz, but Skinwalker Ranch, it does have some bushy areas, but most of it is open desert. So
Right.
how are these things getting around without being seen? With all that, are they? I don't know. So you look at the animal kingdom, right? Look at what animals can do: insects, animals, sea life. Some can produce their own light. Some can naturally, octopus can naturally camouflage themselves to whatever's behind them. Some can generate their own electrical current. I mean, when you look at wildlife, you can see there's a lot of abilities there, even just with wildlife. So, is it too far fetched to say, well, maybe they've got some abilities that we don't know about?
Well, I don't think it's too far fetched at all, because I think, like you said, you've got the electric eel, and then you've got the octopus that can camouflage itself. So just because I haven't seen one doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? And like you said, with Skinwalker, we were just talking about desert and how, I would think that it would be hard to believe that something like that could survive, because where's the food source in a desert? And when it comes to Skinwalker, like you said, there are areas where there's some bush and there's some, a little bit of forested area, but for the most part, it's desert. It's desert. Yeah. It's a different kind of desert than it is here in Southern Nevada, but it's a desert all the same, right? So it's very, very possible that what threw a rock at you may have not been a Bigfoot, but it may have been something else, because there are, local legends there. I mean, it's a big Native American area. I mean, obviously the Skinwalker is, not a nice thing. When you talk to Native Americans, it's not a nice thing.
Skinwalkers aren't, no, according to legend.
No. So who knows what was going on there? I mean, I've never, when it comes to having an experience with something I can't see, I've never had anything thrown at me. I've never been touched, but I've had something run up on me, and I did the exact thing you're not supposed to do. I screamed like a little girl and ran away. Yeah, I mean, you don't expect something like that, and next time it'll be different, but you have to go through something like that to realize how you're going to react. And I don't know. I put the video up. It was at the Goldfield Hotel. Did you ever make it in the Goldfield Hotel?
Yeah, I visited during the day one time when I was with the team.
Right. And just walking through there, I mean, when you walk through a place and you have a preconceived notion because you've heard things and you've seen things about places, and you walk in there and it's like, all right, it's the first time I've been here. And you walk through there. For me, I'm there to try to document something and experience something. So I want to, have those feelings. I want to experience it. So I always walk through and I'm a little kind of like, a little, not hesitant, but I'm just like, all right, what's going to be around this corner? And when you walk through there the first time, it's like, all right, it's just like any other place that's being worked on. Sure, it's old, and sure, there's reports of stuff going on, and sure, I could turn this corner and there could be something standing there that'll just disappear, or something could touch. But I'm walking through there. I want to see what the place is all about visually, and I want to smell it, and I want to hear it before I want to have any type of experience. So when you walked through the Goldfield Hotel, I know it's been a while. Take yourself back there for a moment. What was the vibe like when you were there? Like, what were you feeling when you were there?
Well, I can't say when I was there. I can't say that I didn't, as far as I could tell, I didn't have any paranormal kind of experience there. But I did. I thought, well, this is a really beautiful old building. I really love the bar area, and I thought it was really, really beautiful. I did take some photos in there, series of photos. I can't say that I've got anything there that was knowingly anomalous in nature, but yeah, I can't say I did when I was there.
Okay.
But that was a different story when I went to the Washoe Club in Virginia City, though.
Yeah, see, I've never been to Virginia City.
Yep.
I had the opportunity to go one time, and stuff came up here, and so I sent Cynthia instead of me. I'm like, go and do it, and I'll stay here. So I didn't get to experience it, and everybody else went up there. I don't think they experienced anything when they were there, but they were, they spent the night in the miner's cabin, and I mean, it was a whole thing.
Yep.
But I've never been to Virginia City. But what was the vibe like when you went in the Washoe Club?
Wow. That's all I could say is wow.
Was it?
It is a really active place. You wonder, you see something on television. Well, are they just hyping it up? I tell you what, that place is bloody active. I can say that after being there twice, big locked in there. One by the crypt area at the bottom level of the club. And the next time I went there was in the upper levels. They couldn't open it up at the time because of some sort of bureaucracy or some aspect. But anyway, so my family and we actually got attacked by energy there in the upper level. I do go off when I'm doing investigation like that. I try, even though I've got gear, I do try to go sense the energy when I'm there. What happened is I felt like we weren't welcome upstairs in the ballroom area. I got this impression when I went in there. When I walked in there, it was dark, and I had this feeling of all these eyes turning and watching me, like I had walked in on a card game, and they were pissed. They were pissed at me. Now, we had a ghost box running in the background, and a man's voice said, "Leave," and something grabs my trouser leg on camera, and I didn't know it. It pulls on it. You can see it in the video. It pulls my trouser leg, and all of a sudden this energy started to attack me. I started feeling dizzy and sick. Felt like throwing up, and it started affecting my kids that were there too, my teenage kids. So we had to leave the area. Now, I did ask a control question when I was there. What's the name of this location? Washoe. Voice come through, female voice, Washoe. It's a very, very active place. I was really quite surprised. And I think my kids were really surprised too when they were there. But if you get an opportunity to go up there, I really highly get a hold of Scott Borrell, who's the owner of this. Well, I don't know if he still is, but he was the owner of the Washoe Club there. Oh man, it's amazing.
Okay, well, that brings me to this. I mean, when you went there, obviously that was years and years and years ago when you went there. And now that place, there was a period in time where everybody wanted to go to Virginia City because of Zach and Aaron and Nick. Everybody wanted to go to Virginia City, right? Everybody wanted to go to the Goldfield Hotel because those were the two spots that they hit on the original documentary that started it all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the Washoe Club, I mean, everybody and their grandmother, except for me, has been there and investigated it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's possible to over investigate a place? Do you think it's possible that at some point those spirits there are just like, dude, every night somebody comes through there asking me if I'm here? You think at some point they're just like, I'm just gonna ignore these crazy people walking through here asking if I'm here? You think the place can be over investigated?
Well, yeah, very potentially they can get angry and pissed off, attack people. I was talking to the what was his name, Barry? I forget his last name. The barman there. I talked to him, and he told me about two paranormal investigators that went into the crypt area there where they used to store bodies in the winter. It was too frozen to bury the bodies. And he said they went in there, and I think they went in there to kind of mock. And he said they fled the place. There was something that screamed at them, and they fled. They were out of there. So, yeah, you can get what you're going there for and maybe more. And maybe you might potentially get followed to your own home too. That's the risk of doing that. So, it can certainly ramp up the energy having multiple people. That, there's the risk that you might piss them off and nothing will happen, or they might really, cause, people to freak out. They might attack you in some way.
Right. And maybe one of these days I'll make it up there. I mean, Goldfield Hotel was a bucket list for me. Obviously, there's places back east I would like to go to that my wife's been to. She went to Rolling Hills Asylum in upstate New York. She went there, and I don't remember if she had any experiences there. We used to go to Amargosa. Did you ever make it out to the Amargosa?
Yeah, I haven't. I've heard of it though. I've heard about people having experiences.
Right. We used to go out there. I think we went out there 3 or 4 times. And the only experience I ever had there was we were standing down the hallway in the area called Spooky Hollow, which was just where the people that used to work there lived. And obviously it looks like a hallway in a hotel, but there are no doors on the rooms, but there's, doors on each side as you walk down the hallway. Well, you can stand at one end of the hallway and look all the way down to the other end. And there's light coming in from outside, the lights of the front of the hotel and such kind of coming in. Well, we saw down at the very end, if you're looking down the hallway, down on the very end on the left-hand side is a room, and that's where the angry spirit, the boss man, lived. He wasn't a nice guy. He was just a pissed off dude. Obviously, wasn't a nice guy to his workers. He just, obviously hated the fact that people come in there constantly bothering him. So we were staring down that hallway, and I saw a dog would look like a German Shepherd come out of his room and walk across the hallway into another room directly across. So I took off running down the hallway, and I would say it was probably about maybe 40 yards to the end of the hallway, maybe. And I get down there, and I'm looking in his room, I'm looking in the other room, and my buddy Rob's come walking up behind me. He's like, "You're looking for that dog." I'm like, "Did you see it?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, we're looking. It's not there. Nothing nothing came past us because that would have been the only way to get out."
Yeah.
And we looked in like the boss man's room, across the hallway, the rooms kind of around that. There was no dog to be found.
Wow.
So we saw an apparition of a dog. So I don't know if it was, something else appearing as an apparition of a dog, or it was actually the ghost of a dog. I don't know, but I can see it in my mind's eye right now, exactly like when it happened. So now, unfortunately, they don't allow people to investigate out there. You can go rent a room in the hotel and investigate in your room, but you can't go in Spooky Hollow anymore.
Right, yeah.
So I wonder, there was Ghost Adventures did an episode on the Queen Mary where, due to COVID, the Queen Mary was shut down, obviously, right?
Okay. Yep.
And they were saying that the crew members and everything that ran the boat were talking about the activity increased because nobody was there investigating. Nobody was doing anything. And the activity actually increased because it was like the boat was shut down. So there wasn't a lot of activity as far as people are concerned, other than the people working there. So I'm just curious if there's any, I would be curious to know if there was any kind of activity going on down there in Spooky Hollow now that people aren't allowed to investigate down there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Right. And I don't know if it's something where you could maybe ask them, hey, I don't want to go down there and investigate, but would you allow me to leave a recorder running overnight? And then if I'm renting a room, and then in the morning, would you go retrieve the recorder for me?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be real interested to know if you left a recorder in there, if you might capture something now that nobody's allowed to investigate that place.
Yeah.
Or do you think now that people aren't going through there all the time, maybe the spirits that are there have moved on?
Yeah. I wonder about that, whether too many people, whether it causes them to sort of back off, or whether spaces of quietness, whether it allows it to recharge or whatever is going on. But there's a lot of these spirit beings, they seem to interact with people. Obviously there's a stone tape theory where maybe history some way has been recorded, replays itself, but then these alleged spirits, apparitions, whatever you want to call them, departed souls or whatever, they interact with people. That might call your name, you might get pushed, slapped, scratched, a variety of ways, touched. Well, they might target women, or it's kind of interesting to see how they react to different people. I do a lot of ongoing ITC work. Now, something very strange happened just over 2 years ago, February 17th, 2024. I was out in the wild, completely dark. I had my parabolic mic set up on my, was it a Canon XA10, static camera, infrared, pointed towards the mountain where all the stuff has been happening. Now, I was there for what was going on in the mountain and around there. Something very strange happened. This car pulls up behind me. I thought, the Saturday night hooligans. I first thought that, and I ignored them to my dismay. I tell you what, something very strange happened. Have you heard of Indrid Cold over Moehau Man prophecies?
Yes.
Well, there was a man by the name of Woodrow Derenberger who was driving. He was a sewing machine salesman. He was driving along West Virginia. A UFO allegedly comes down, forces his car to pull over on the side of the road. This strange man with a big smile on his face, tanned, looks completely human, gets dropped by this UFO. The UFO sits there about 80 or so feet in the air. This man approaches his car and asks who he is, and a little bit about what his city is, and strange questions. He had the big smile on his face. Asked him, the poor man Woodrow. He suffered a lot from that encounter. Became very famous. This happened back in 1966. In fact, it was the same year there was a UFO encounter over in Western Australia. A UFO lands right outside a school. A number of school children see this UFO and alleged beings from this craft that lands. But anyway, so I had an experience similar to Woodrow, the salesman. I had something very similar happen back on February 17th. This car pulls up behind me. I ignore it completely because I thought, well, they're just, they're being nosy or whatever. It's dark. I'm wearing a hood. I've got headphones on. You can't ID me. There's no artificial lights out there. This car pulls up. I ignore them. Now, when I went over to the recording for that night, my jaw about fell off. These people, they sounded like they were off the ghost box, the voices on the ghost box. They had strange accents. Not only that, they knew my name. They knew aspects to my research that are not public. They talked about taking me. They mentioned something about alien people. Other stuff erupted that I suspect that spirit beings were watching these strange people pull up. I suspect strongly that they were not from our world. They spoke really strange. Their mannerisms were really foreign. I couldn't believe what I had just missed out. They were only several feet away from me. They knew about my research. And They mentioned stuff that's not available to the public. They knew the religion that I used to go to over 15 years ago. I mean, it was like they had a supernatural knowledge, and I couldn't believe it. So I am trying to get lightning to strike twice. I want to meet them. I suspect strongly they are connected to UFOs and perhaps stuff that's gone over on West Virginia. I suspect quite strongly they are connected with what we might call ETs, ultra-terrestrials, whatever you want to call them.
Well, I think at this point, they've proven that Indrid Cold was actually a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch, there's a pretty cool documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watched it. It's I would say documentary / series on Amazon called Hellier.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
And it's Hellier. There's 2 seasons, Hellier 1 and Hellier 2, and I think they're working on Hellier 3. Well, this documentary was a phenomenon. I mean, it spread like wildfire, and everybody was watching it. So the premise is with it that these Greg and Dana Newkirk, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're investigators, and they have a website, and so it's like weird something. They do a week in weird or something. Anyways, so they have this old email address from this old ghost hunting team that they had that they like check maybe once every 10 years. Like they almost didn't even realize it was still active.
Mm.
Well, they get an email from this guy, and this guy claims to be this doctor that lives in Hellier, Kentucky, and is having these goblins come out of this cave and mess with his family, and he's got pictures of prints, and he's got drawings of what these goblins look like. And this is Kentucky. This is coal mine country. Yep. Well, Hellier, Kentucky's not very far from where my dad's side of the family is from, right? So, but I reached out to them, and they're like, Hellier, I'm not even sure if that exists, but it does. It's just like it's like not even a stoplight in this town. It's a very small town. Anyways, throughout the course of this documentary spread out over 6 or 7 parts, when you get into Hellier 2, that's when they kind of get into Indrid Cold and the Mothman stuff, because they get this guy, his name, he goes by the name Terry R. Rist. So terrorist is what this guy, that's like his pseudonym, writes him a letter or something. Well, Terry Rist, there's an interview with Terry R. Rist, in Secret Cipher of the UFO Written by Dr. Alan Greenfield. And I've interviewed Alan a couple times. Oh, Dr. Greenfield's hilarious. He's been around since the beginning of, the UFO research. And I mean, you're going all the way back to the 50s and early 60s when the infancy of the UFO research was when he was around. He knew all the big players back then. When you used to spend money and they would send you out something in the mail with a stamp on it and you would get it, Yeah. He was around then. And then he's also really into the secret societies and that, not so much like the Illuminati, but he talks about in this book, Secret Cipher, the UFO Knots, he talks a lot about Aleister Crowley and a lot of the secret societies and, L. Ron Hubbard and all of these crazy things. And he talks about Indrid Cold and all of that was going on back then. He talks about Indrid Cold as if Indrid Cold was an actual person. Mm-hmm. So it's very possible that this Indrid Cold was at some point an actual person. Whether or not, the story of being dropped down out of a UFO on a highway in West Virginia, is real or not, we don't know, because it was so long ago. But it's starting to come out that potentially Indrid Cold was a real person. So that's pretty wild. So we're getting down here to the wire, Mark. And I got one question that I want to ask, and we were talking about UFOs earlier, and I didn't get to it then, but I'm curious why now every sighting is of a Tic Tac or a UAP or a triangle craft, which you don't even really hear about those much anymore. One shape you don't hear about at all is the flying saucer. Why are we not seeing flying saucers anymore?
Oh, they exist.
Well, sure.
In modern times, I actually have footage of them from 2017 April when I was out by this mountain. I saw this giant sphere by the mountain, and it was the same situation. I couldn't get my bloody camera out fast enough. However, I used my DSLR. Unbeknownst to me, there was a smaller craft in those foothills of that mountain. According to the mountain of the fairy people. Well, there's one of them does a mid-air flip at around Mark 3, goes behind the foothills, showing it wasn't a bird or an insect moving very fast or something in front of the lens on the camera. I caught one of those saucer craft. So I'm not sure about other people, but in 2017, I got some of these sources on my camera, along with balls of light, a lot of weird stuff. I don't know if they're coming from another dimension. I don't know for sure. But I had the director for MUFON Australasia. He had a look at the footage there, and he says the craft seems to have some sort of almost like a field around it.
Right.
It seems to be surrounding it. So I don't know. I've seen like the giant sphere. I've seen the Tic Tac shape. So I don't know. Do these whatever's creating them? Do they have different models? Like no one's driving the Model T Ford anymore, right? You've got unless it's a classic car show. But do they revise their craft? Do they have?
Right.
Oh, now we have the X5 model of flying saucer, or you know what I mean? So. I don't know.
Well, look at it this way. If you brought up a good point, have they, revised? Nobody's driving a Model T anymore except for at a car show, right? So maybe the classic flying saucer was a Model T of the interstellar travelers, the aliens, the ETs. So, but think about it this way, though. When you see something high in the sky, even sometimes when you look at an airplane and it's way up at like 36,000 feet and the sun's hitting it just right, you can't see wings on it because of how far away it is. So it just looks like a metallic blob in the sky, crossing the sky with some, chemtrails coming out of the back of it that are going to kill us all, right? So you can't really tell what it is. So maybe you're onto something there that, a lot of these Tic Tacs and these UAPs are like the newer versions. It's very possible there are versions of something, the United States or humans. Maybe it's humans versions of something. Maybe it's our technology.
Secret technology.
Right.
With the thing that I saw in 2013, I've thought a lot about the sighting that I had, and I thought, well, if you have top secret tech, why would you fly it low in the desert where potentially you could be seen? Why fly it close to, even though it's remote desert, it could potentially crash, could potentially be seen by members of the public.
Right.
Why would you risk technology like that,
Right.
Especially landing it. This thing appeared to land. And so I think, well, do they have a secret base out there or something? Or I am certain, Chaz, that some of these beings walk among us. From what I've experienced and seen, it blows my mind. It really does. So, and I have evidence, audio evidence of these beings that I think walk amongst us. And to what level they interact with humanity, I don't know, but I want to look behind the silver curtain. I want to see what the hell's going on,
Right. So that's you moving forward. You're going to continue your research. you're going to continue to go out there in those uninhabited areas and continue to try to document using ITC. And as far as the ITC is concerned, I know you talk about the SB7 quite often. Is that your primary piece of equipment that you use for the ITC?
Yeah, after many years, that's one that I use. Now, it's off the idea of the Frank's box, Frank Sumpton, that invented Frank's box around 2002, which basically it scans through the radio. Now, I suspect, now Frank Sumpton passed away, but I suspect that he got the idea maybe after there was an episode. Remember the old show from the early 80s called The Greatest American Hero, where there's a guy that flies like Superman.
Not very well.
Yeah, but I know it's going back a long way. But anyway, in the first episode, when the ET show up, they actually they're in the car out in the desert. The radio in the car starts skipping, giving a message. It is skipping stations, So I'm wondering if you got the who got the idea from that. I don't know, but anyway, so I've had a lot of amazing stuff come through. Ghost box research. I use further. I don't want false positives. I only want the real thing. Of course, you have to experiment with this stuff. I have done control questions. One time I was having trouble hearing it, and a voice came through and said, "Have faith, Marc Coppell." It actually said my first and last name.
Right.
Now, very few people have my name in this world, my first and last name. And I've had so many things come through that, to me, it works, but you have to experiment and try it out. But now, having said that, there are gimmicks out there that try to market to gullible people, and you have to basically research and see if it works or not, and try it out.
Well, I have an SB7.
Yep.
And I've never really gotten much out of it. And I have an SB11.
Okay.
And I've never really messed with that one either. That was recently given to me a few months ago, and I haven't really messed with it.
Yep.
I haven't gone on it. It's a lot more complicated, right? 2 channels, forward, reverse, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So it's a little more complicated. What I do have was someone gave me an old Radio Shack radio.
Oh, the Hex Shack?
Well, it's but it's not like there was a couple different versions, right? And this is one of the ones where you could go in and you could do the thing to where it cycled. And this particular one, pretty much all of the ITC responses that I've gotten that I feel were pretty strong were from this radio. And one of those was that same time that I got the ghost or the footsteps run up on me at the Goldfield Hotel. I have the video online if you ever want to check it out. I'm walking up the stairs, and you may have already watched it because I've shared it a couple times. I'm walking up the stairs, and I've got that Radio Shack radio going, and I have my camera in my hand. And that radio, and I didn't notice the second one, but the first one says, it's cycling through, and it's all, and it says, wait. And as soon as it says, wait, I acknowledged it said, wait, and I stopped. And that's when I heard the footsteps run up on me. And then I said, whoa, and I ran back downstairs, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do. And then as I got downstairs, about 5 seconds later, that same radio, it's going, and it says, ghost step.
Yeah.
And so after that, that is like the ITC unit for me. That one works 100%. Now, I know a lot of people like the apps on the phones, right?
Yep.
And I know a lot of those apps can be debunked as like, hey, they're programmed to say things because they're programmed to be used for one thing and one thing only, ghost hunting. So all their responses relate to that. So they're all going to be weird, creepy responses that, have something to do with what you're doing. Like, they figure, okay, people are walking around in the dark. So it's
Right.
going to say, it's dark here, or something like that, right?
Right.
So,
Pre-program
right.
messages. Yeah.
So when we were at the gold field, and I have this, if you look online, I have like a 5.5 minute video where I edited all the stuff together that I think is pretty decent footage and evidence at the gold field. And one of those is I asked the question, and this one kind of leads back to what I was just talking about. Like maybe it's programmed, right? I ask, and it's somebody using their phone. And I say, Miss Virginia, are you here? And then like 3, 4, 5 seconds later, it says, yes, I'm here. So, Miss Virginia was the caretaker, right? Virginia Ridgeway. So then there was another one where they were using the same app on their phone, and they were at one end of the hallway. I was all the way down at the other end of the hallway. And I turn around and I say, hey, it's me. I'm walking back towards you guys, because at that point they couldn't see me because it was dark. They could just hear me walking. I said, it's me. I'm walking toward you guys. And their phone that they were using, the application said Charles, which is my real first name. So that was pretty interesting. We had another time where the same application, we were somewhere and Cynthia was sitting in a chair, and she stood up out of the chair, and the app responded, sit back down. So sometimes, I think that sometimes they are valid, but for the most time they're kind of yucky responses, but they could get real responses out of it. So I don't completely discount the apps on the phone. It really depends on which one you're using. But every single time I'm going to use that Radio Shack radio because it works.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
you have to find what works,
Right.
Yeah, there are gimmicks. Like I remember on investigation, somebody had one of those apps, and I said, oh, can I have a look at it? Because he said, oh, look, it's showing up. These anomalies are showing where they are. Well, I get it, and I turn it 180 degrees, but you know what? So did the anomalies turn 180 degrees. I was like, debunked.
Well, I know it was that Ghost Radar.
Yes,
that's it. I did an investigation in Utah, and I show up with my big tub of all my equipment, and I'm getting my camera ready, and I'm getting my shack hack ready, and everything, and I'm walking around, and I'm not getting much of anything. And I hear out of the, off in the distance, oh, it shows there's one here, right here. And I walk, I'm like, what are you guys using? They're like, oh, it's this great app we use all the time called Ghost Radar. And I just like, all right, well, I'm not getting anything. I'm going to take off. I was like, oh, man, figures. So, all right, Mark. Well, we're hitting the 1.5 hour mark. So I do appreciate the fact that you took your time. I know that it's, you're super busy with your research and day-to-day life and everything. And I do appreciate you joining me again. I can never thank you enough for joining me.
Oh, look, Matt, Chaz, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's, I appreciated everything you did when I was in Las Vegas, where you did these little group sessions where people could go out to like Foxwoods Park or whatever. Right. I appreciate the work that you did there. It was really good. And, in some way I'm kind of sad, that I'm away from all of that, but I really appreciate what you do too, Chaz.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think you're on the bigger fish that you're frying right now. I mean, you're definitely on to something. You're getting some responses there, and you're having some experiences there that, I mean, we all want that one spot where we can kind of call our own and research over and over and over again. You found that spot. I was hoping it would be Sandy Valley Cemetery for me.
Yep.
But it's, like I said, it's kind of gone cold, and I haven't been there in about 6 years. So, no, I take that back. I went there about a year ago, but I only stayed for about 15 minutes. So I didn't have enough time to really dive into it again, but I plan on going back. But you have your spot. I mean, it's a controlled setting. Without it being a controlled setting, if that makes sense. I mean, there's stuff that that can influence what's going on around there, but that's your spot. Nobody else is going out there to contaminate anything you're pulling from that.
Well, when you find a good location, it's probably good to sort of keep it under your hat, unless you really trust people. But because people can go there and wreck it, it can get contaminated. If something's ongoing there. So I want to meet the physical people that walk among us.
Right.
I'm pushing for that to happen. According to my research, they tell me that I'm going to have a face-to-face with them, and I've been very, very close. It's absolutely unbelievable to me what's going on. I have to pinch myself, but it's happening, and I feel that close to it. That's what I feel.
Well,
is it an illusion?
Right.
My devices don't need a Prozac, a pill of Prozac. My devices record what's going on.
Right. Well, keep me posted. I mean, I'm sure as soon as you have that experience, you're going to let people know about it, unless they tell you, hey, shh, and we'll.
Yeah, I actually got some warnings from the beings themselves, because I am involved with the family court. So they warned me. They basically warned me to be very careful what you say in public about them.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because of now I already had to go to a psychiatrist for family court to say that I wasn't nuts, because they knew that I already had interest in the subject. And so I basically had to prove myself that I'm not experiencing a mental illness or schizophrenia or all these delusions of grandeur or whatever.
Right. I can understand where somebody that you may be dealing with in that situation that doesn't want you to have certain things might try to use this to their advantage.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So and the beings have warned me about that too, because they've got insight to what's going on. So
right. Well, I wish you the best of luck in that. Obviously, I want nothing but the best for you in the outcome of that situation. I hope that you have this experience that you're so, looking forward to having. And I hope it's everything you expect and want it to be.
Well, thank you, Jazz. I'm doing this because I hope that whatever happens, I can share that with others, people who are looking for answers.
Right.
They may have had a sighting themselves. They may have lived in a haunted house. Maybe they saw something strange in the sky. I want answers to what I've seen, and I try to share what I record out there.
Right. All right, Mark. Well, I'll let you get to it and get back out there, buddy, and keep me up to speed.
Cheers, mate. I will do. Thanks, Jazz.
Thank you, Mark. And before I let you go, what is your documentary still available for people to purchase and watch?
Well, you know what? They could go watch it on my YouTube channel for free.
Okay.
10 years making documentary. So it's actually on my Mountain of Entities channel on YouTube. Just look up. It's called Bigfoot UFO Documentary. It's otherwise known as the X-Rated Files, followed from Skinwalker. It's a play off the X-Files, but because these beings, they would do little X's in the forest. They would push things into the creek beds and stuff, things like that. So it's a kind of a play off that and the X-Files and Skinwalker Ranch. So,
okay, so Mountain of Entities is, and that's a YouTube channel, Mountain of Entities. Okay,
that's actually a name they gave me too. So,
oh wow, okay. So everybody, make sure you check out Mark's YouTube channel on Mountain of Entities. The documentary is there. I didn't know the documentary was actually there. I'm gonna go watch it.
Yeah,
I've never seen the whole thing.
So you could see what happens when I take someone to this first area. I take a guy that's never had anything like this happen, and you can see what happens when I take him there to this wild area.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it. Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
It's got interviews and those UFOs that I was telling you about earlier from Mount Moehau 2017. So
okay, all right, we'll check it out. So everybody, Mountain of Entities on the YouTube channel. That's my good friend Marc Coppell. Hey, Mark, you have a great evening, morning. I'm not sure what it is there, but you're clear across this beautiful blue marble. So you have a great day, I guess. if
Yeah,
it's okay.
thanks so much, Jazz. All the best to you, mate.
All right, man. Take care, Mark, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Peace. All right, so there we go. Marc Coppell. Mark's great. I reach out to him all the time. He does live streams on YouTube. He's got Haunted Man. He's got Mountain of Entities there on YouTube. He does live streams all the time. If you follow him, click that notification bell so you can see when he goes live. Mark isn't in this to make money. Mark is in this for genuine answers. Kind of same thing like me. I'm not making any money off of this, that's for sure. I'm doing this because I enjoy it and I like having fun and talking to people that talk about stuff that I'm interested in. So again, same thing for me. Something for the Head is the name of this podcast. I am Chaz Stumbo. You know, we're on Rumble, Facebook, X. It's at SFTH51. That's where we are on X. Follow me there, you know, check it out. Do all those likes, subscribe, notification bells, do all that good stuff. And until next time, I'm going out.